Well, thank you for tuning in to my third Seeburg conquest here. We had the LS1, we had the stereo showcase, and now I've picked up a Discotheque. And as I alluded to in the previous videos, I've been steering away from the AP ones, the album player models. This is the PFEA 1U, which is a little easier to work on, and thank goodness, because this one had a lot of problems, and so I hope that maybe I can pass on some of my solutions, and I hope you get something out of this, because there sure were enough issues to sort through. For the first one is something I wasn't aware of, but the cartridge for the Discotheque, and this is the Electra, not the Fleetwood. This is right before they went to the lighter weight tone arm and cartridge with the stereo showcase. But guess what? Needles are tough to get. This cartridge was correct, but there were no needles in there. And I was lucky to salvage a used pair from Mike Florio up in New York. So kudos to him, because yeah, I don't always replace needles, but if you don't have any, you gotta scramble. So I want you to know right up front, that is a problem with this box, okay? And you might want to secure some good used ones, or switch out the tone arm if you have to, and which is a lot of work. But since I got the needles, I didn't have to do that. But we're going to do the same process here. We'll talk about the cabinet, because I had a problem right from the get-go, and then we'll go to the individual components, the power supply or the control box, the mechanism, the pricing unit, which was wrong in this one, so we'll go over that. We had a lot of keyboard issues. We're going to go over keyboard problems. We'll talk briefly about the service switch, and then the amplifier. So hopefully we can do this in about 35 minutes, and I hope you get something out of it. You should. Okay, here we go. Here's our Discotheque, and here are the resources I would like you to at least attempt to get many of these as you can. At least get a schematic. This was not a full service manual, but you'll need that. A troubleshooting guide is helpful. This is for the SS160, but if you can get one, it'll work for the Discotheque as well. I still can't go without mentioning flippers.com website. If for no other reason than you get the transistor substitution list, because you're going to need it, and these are the numbers that you're going to be relying on, the 309 numbers, not the Q5 105, etc. If you can get your hands on Dr. Know-It-All's book, a lot of good Seeburg stuff there. And then I want to mention, of course, this is the black light model, which is one of the key features, unique features. And these bulbs are F30T8 BL black light, 30 watt, and they are 36 inches long. And there are two of them in this box. One of them sits up under here, and it did tend to ravage this decal. They would often get all black, so I did replace that. The other one is down here on the front. By the way, this glass has two layers. There's a front glass with some graphics like the clock here, and then there's the insert behind it. You need both. Sometimes the front glass is missing and you just have the city scene behind it, but it does have a 3D look. It's cool. And now we'll go through all the components that we're going to go through. And there's, of course, the control center, SCC3. The keyboard we'll go over in detail. I meant to put a auto speed unit there. That's wrong. And then the pricing units. This had the album player pricing unit in a UDP3 from earlier, and I didn't like that. It was not the proper one. It was also missing the coin slide, so I had that challenge to get around. But I was able to. The UDP4 is what came with this box, but I didn't have that, and I had a UDP5, and I was able to get it to work, and I'll show you that. And of course, there's the amplifier. You also want to service your service switch, and I'll show you what needs to be done on that to get things to work. Let's get started now with the control center. Before we go to the control panel, I said I had a lot of problems with this box, and embarrassingly so, I was not able to get in the box. I had the right key, and the reason was this title strip assembly had fallen down slightly, and it was enough to jam and prevent you from getting the lid up. It was a real pain, so be sure that you don't have that happen to you. Make sure both of the tabs are over, it's locked, and maybe even secure at least one of them so that it doesn't drop down. That was a real pain. At any rate, let's, okay, here's the control panel and control box, power supply, SCC3. Spend time here. If you service this properly, we've talked about it before, you will not have your mechanism go back and forth twice and not pick up a record. Most of your write-in, readout problems will be solved if you service this properly. So these are your two relays, your add and subtract for when you make a credit. Clean the contacts. Be sure both of the coils are freely movable. This is your trip coil. Clean all the contacts, check it for continuity. All the electrolytics must go. This capacitor needs replaced. It was just dangling loose there. This is electrolytic. These two are not electrolytic, but replace them. These are your write-in and readout capacitors. They need to be critical, so replace them even if they're good with the proper values. Now, the resistors, I would check. I check everything in here, and I mean it, everything. But the ones that are bad, this 56,000 ohm, 2 watt resistor often goes bad. I'm surprised this one is still in here. Replace it with 2 110,000 watt, 2 watt resistors in parallel, which will effectively give you 4 watts and 55,000 ohms, and that should be fine. Check this guy, it needs to be critical. This guy, there's also a 7,500 ohm 10 watt resistor there. Now, check it. If it's good and it has the red lettering on it, leave it in. If it's good or bad with the black lettering on it, remove it. The black lettered ones were not as good if you happen to come across them. Most all of them have been the red lettering that I've seen. Now, check every diode in here. This is your rectifier circuit. There are 2 diodes, power diodes here, 27 volts and 150 volts. Check both of them. If they are, well, I had one bad. I ordered a replacement from Vetco, VETCO Electronics. Make sure you add the electronics. If you just go with Vetco, you're going to get some dog biscuits. But at any rate, they were very nice, and I would recommend them. Now, this is a choke here. I have heard that it reads about 4 ohms. If it's bad or open, you can simply replace it with about a 5 watt 4 ohm resistor. It's not, I don't think, critical to this circuit. This is your silicone control relay here. That is part of your write-in, like the old Thyrotron of the tube ones. Very critical component. It's been good so far. If it's not good, it is 309377, and then you look it up on the Flippers site, and that crosses to ECG or NTE 5401 or 5404 if you need it. And then after you've done all this, everything in here has been checked. You want to then plug it in through a current limiting bulb and see if you got your correct voltages. And your correct voltages will be 27 volts DC on 1 and 150 on 8. And then go over to your green Molex here, and on pin 2, hold on a second. On pin 2, you will have 24 volts. There are other places you could check, but be sure you have the 24 volts AC. And then also pin 7 is the 40 volts DC that goes over to the pricing unit. And if you do this properly, it's going to go a long way to having a reliable right-in system. Okay, we're going to move on to the mech. As far as the mech goes on this Discotheque, I sensed there were quite a few problems here. I could not get it to scan. The clutch is frozen up more than I could undo from lubricating from the rear, and for that reason I'm going to take off the record rack. And it's a process. You have to undo these the popularity meter and the record now selecting bulb, and then you also have to take out the 2 rods that they ride on, and then you can take the top off. It'll lift off, and then this assembly will be free because it's wired, and you can't otherwise just take off the top without removing some of these components. When you do take off the record rack, be sure you at least mark it with a magic marker, or have an idea of where it was lined up, so when you put it back on, you'll have the alignment pretty close. Now, there are just 4 screws to undo there and take it off, and then we ought to be able to access the back of the mech and really clean things up. So I'll keep you posted. I like to use this junker mechanism for illustration only. This is not what was in the box, but it was should illustrate pretty well the problems that I encountered. Now, I did not mention when we were in the control unit, the power supply, replacing all those capacitors and looking at the resistors, the 15 amp fuse, the main fuse that supplies 24 volts pretty much everywhere in the box, was blown. That's not a good omen. So the first place you look, 24 volts supplies power to the trip solenoid here and to the keyboard selection solenoid, the latch solenoid. Those are the only 2 components that aren't fused. It's 24 volts goes to a lot of stuff in the pricing unit, but it's all protected with a fuse. But this guy is not protected, and sure enough, you check the it's connection 2 and connection I think it's 3M12, but it's the one that's above the right there, and you put it on, and guess what? Open line, open. So there was major problem number 1. We have a bad trip solenoid, and I think you should all do this when you get your mech out. Start with checking that. My gosh, if you don't have a trip solenoid, you don't have a jukebox. Now, major problem number 2. Looky here. This is your coupling that couples the motor to the main drive gear. Well, these go bad, and this one was completely shot. I tried to power it up and to move the mech, and the motor was working, but nothing was happening. So there are 4 hex nut screws you must release, and then you put it up under there, and you have to bring this motor out. There's 4 screws you undo, and then unscrew this here, and you can bend this out a bit, but the motor has to tilt out a bit so you can shimmy this up in and then tighten the 4 screws. That's the second major problem. Incidentally, the normal ohmage for the trip solenoid, I got 19 to 20 ohms on a good one, so that's what we're looking for instead of the open line. All right, now 2 more problems we had. this mechanism had the classic sit and spin. When it tried to put a record back, it would never put it fully back in the rack, and it would just sit there and spin. Nothing was happening. So that usually means a dirty clutch assembly, or it could be this safety lever. And in my case, it was both. Okay, so we're going to go over how to manage those problems here in a second. Now I'm going to trip the solenoid in the front. This obviously spins very easily now, but you can see the clutch. Now we are in scan mode, but now we're going to go out of scan mode, and the arm here should start to come up. Okay, it's bringing out a record, and the clamp clamped, and now we're in play the record mode. Now we're okay. Now we will we'll flip the switch again here, the lever, and we'll bring it out. And I want you to try to see this here now. We've got two things going on. Well, we'll do it twice. So now the clutch, when it gets back down to the bottom here, see the arm is coming back out, it's coming back down. Now watch here. The clutch still hasn't engaged yet. Oh dear, I wish I could. There. Okay, now. There, it goes down, okay? And now it's the detente switch. It's pretending to go. You see the switch is clicking over here. We're now in scan mode. Now, what I did, this was stuck, so I often will go in. Now, you lubricate everything, but then you can go in with a screwdriver here and try to push this up and down, manipulate it, okay? You have to be sure this guy, moves. This is important, this fella here, and this whole assembly has to move up and down. Now, I got it lubricated and it actually did that, but I took a heat gun to this. It still wasn't set. I took a heat gun here, and I took a heat gun over to this guy here on this side. And that helped. I didn't have to take the clutch out and replace it. So with liberal lubrication and a heat gun, I got the clutch assembly to work well. But the problem over here was with this safety lever, as the records, let's do that again. Now we're going to bring the record out again, okay? And as the record is being taken back to the you see the arm come out, release the record, and now it's coming back. Now watch this guy here, this safety lever. It's supposed to get out of the way of this arm, because this arm is part of the clutch assembly. So watch this here now. The record's coming out, and the safety lever will go over and say, hey, is there a warped record there or not? No, there's not. Okay, good. Now this guy can come down. And if he can come down, well, the clutch just fell. And now we're going to be able to go into, scan mode again. And you see that readout switch over there. By the way, these contacts of that switch, you have to take that off and clean them. But so what was the matter here? I had made the adjustment. It was in the manual. I lubricated the dickens out of this, and my lever was still not getting out of the way. So what did I do? This whole lever moves over when the cam releases the bottom of this at least it's the whole assembly, and it's actually the spring then that pulls this up. So what did I do? I took off this spring, and this guy here, I took him off the top, and I removed the first 4 or 5 rungs of it, and then made it shorter basically. And strengthening that spring was enough to allow this guy to come up then and get out of the way of this lever so that the clutch assembly could work properly. So all I'm trying to say is sometimes you got to improvise. Lubrication alone and adjustment was not enough. This darn spring needed a little more help. It wasn't powerful enough when it got released to pull this guy up and push it over. So hey, that's all I gotta say. You gotta sometimes do what you spend a little time on the keyboard because this keyboard had some issues, and I want to point them out. The keyboard is removed with there's just 4 nuts that need to be removed, and it comes out. You have to disconnect its 2 harnesses first, of course, which one is coming from the tour mat or the on the back, and the other is coming from the pricing unit. Okay, 12. So, but at any rate, check your solenoid. It should read around 6 ohms. That's important. Check your resistor there. I believe it's 100 ohms. Check the 2 resistors over here that go to the lights. But then you have to free up this treadle, and that requires some lubrication. This treadle needs to move over, hold on there, and go back. So spray some WD-40 or lubricant across a whole line there, and then you know it's going to be successful if you pull the solenoid in and then press a button down and it holds, which it does in this case, and then when you release it goes back. That's what you want. Now all these contacts have to be cleaned down here, and make and break. Look for those little snap, these little, I hope you can see that. Sometimes they're off track, and you got to look at all of them. But I wanted to point out here, with the schematic, you're supposed to have continuity all across these guys here, okay? And then when you push one, it transfers current to this fella. Well, if you look at this here, here's the current, and it should go all the way across the top, and then it goes over here and then goes to the rest of it. It's in series, so that if you press a button here, no one can, it's an anti-cheat, in other words. You don't get any more selections, but you should have continuity from here all the way across the top to here, and we don't. And the reason we don't is when I press this switch here, we had a problem, and I'm going to hope you see it. When you press this, look at that. That guy is slipping. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Here, look at this. It goes down straight and makes a contact. This guy is missing, and because of that, there's no continuity across. So what you have to do is hardwire across here. You don't worry about cheating when you're a homeowner, okay? So you can connect power. So that way, any button that's pressed will have power down to the correct selection and hit the tour mat. I hope that's clear, because this, and there was another one like that over here on this keyboard that was loose. So in that situation, you have no choice but to hardwire that top line. Here was my fix. I just stripped a thin wire, and then I threaded it through the holes here and soldered at each connection. So this is A through K. And now on the multimeter, you've got 0.2, so you've got very good continuity across there. And now even that bad switch. The bad switch wouldn't make a connection on top, but when you push it down, it does make a connection for the letter, so it should be good. This is the first time I've had to do this, and I think I did it right. it certainly looks like it should work. One last thing on this keyboard now, and by the way, all of the switches are put into singles nut. If you push it this way toward the solenoid, you've created an album. And in that case, when you press a button, this whole treadle moves. Now, if you don't have any album selections, when you push the treadle, it doesn't move, okay? But I put this whole unit in expecting it to work. I pressed 2 buttons and nothing happened. They stayed down, but no selection was made. Well, there's a connection right here on this guy that has to, even though this is not actuated at all now, and these guys have to be clean and making good so that was my problem. I checked the fuse over in the pricing unit, but this bad boy wasn't making good. So please clean that guy. Make sure he makes good connection. He never moves, but he's got to conduct power. So that was, I'm just pointing out things that go wrong. And all right, that's enough for the keyboard. A lot of problems here, but I think we got them solved. Try to move a little more quickly here. So at any rate, your toggle switch needs to be put in play, and these contacts need to be cleaned in there. And number 1 and number 8. Okay, look at your latch solenoid circuit here when you're trying to get credit up to the credit light to go on and the latch solenoid to latch. Well, it has to go through. Guess what? It comes over here to this stupid service switch assembly. So 1 and 8 have to have continuity in the play position. Please be sure that's the case here. Okay, this is in play, and the continuity, well, it's good enough. They are making. That's all I want to say about the switch. You should clean it and be sure that those 2 contacts are have continuity in the play. The auto speed unit, I've covered this last time. It has to be serviced. There are 2 transistors. They're germanium. Be sure they're at least not shorted and don't have excessive leakage. You need to check them with a analog multimeter. And this is the oil-filled capacitor that you really need to have. It's 4 microfarad, 370 volts AC. This is reasonable. I think it's $2 or $3. Please get this, and then replace all the other electrolytic capacitors and clean any contacts in there. There is the motor relay that check the continuity of the coil and clean the contacts, and you should be good. On to the pricing unit and the more problems. The pricing unit that should be in the Discotheque Electra is the UPDU4 unit, and here's the schematic for that, and it only has a 6-pin connector coming over from the coin slides, so it doesn't require a jumper. Well, I didn't have that one, and I didn't like the U3 that was in there with the album player, since I'm not playing albums. But I did have a UDPU5 unit from the stereo showcase that has a 9-pin connector coming over from the coin slides. Now, I didn't have any coin slides anyway, so I pretty much had to set this up on free play. And to do that, if you don't have the coin switch coming over, you must jumper pins 6 and 7. And that's right here in the SS160 manual. You know, your whole credit unit, keyboard, nothing's going to work if you don't have that jumper between 6 and 7. So do it. And then this should work as long as you clean all the contacts. This is your subtract solenoid. This does pretty much everything in here. It actuates all the contacts that need to get the mech started. I want you to look at this carefully. This switch here, right here, operates off of the subtract solenoid and must make and break. See how that you have to be sure that's clean and happening. That's pretty much everything in here. There are 2 capacitors to replace over here. You can find them. Clean all the contacts, but that should work. Now, if you want it on free play, obviously your subtract solenoid subtracts, and this one, like here for instance, is the $1 credit. It'll give credits, but all you have to do is put credits on and then disable this guy. You can put a piece of cardboard or something in here so it remains unengaged with the wheel, and then this subtract solenoid could do its thing, but makes all the contacts work but doesn't debit credits. So that's all you have to do. Sometimes people have broken this off. Don't do that. Just put a piece of cardboard in there just to get it off that wheel, and then you should be on free play. Well, if you're still with me, and if you're going to do some amplifier work, then stay tuned. The last section is on the amp repair, and honestly, I get the most enjoyment out of fixing the amps myself. They are fixable, and this one had a lot of problems, and I got through it. I don't know how, but I want to show you the main components that we worry about and how we fix them, and then we'll close up. I wanted to point out some flaws in this schematic, which is the TSA-4 amplifier from the Discotheque Electra. Now, first of all, this resistor R5133 75 ohms is not 75, it's 33 ohms, and then of course on the other channel its partner is the same, 33 ohms. Make a note of that. And also look at some of these voltages here. I had a problem. We're supposed to have 19 volts on the base of Q105 and actually Q106 as well. And then, but look at the emitter is supposed to be 22 volts. Well, these should only be separated by 0.7 volts. That's the bias voltage of a transistor. So right there's a problem, and that was pointed out to me on some of the forums because I asked for advice on this. I was struggling, and now the output voltage is minus 47 volts. That's always about twice of what you should get here on your center voltage going out to your speakers. So I didn't have that. I only had 12 volts here instead of 22. So what was my problem? Well, it was going to be one of these 3 transistors. And in this case, on the previous amp, on the Stereo Showcase, 5106 was your regulator transistor that controlled everything, and that was the key. Well, in this one, it's Q5104. Q5106 is one of the driver transistors. This transistor is germanium. These are silicon. So at any rate, this is the part of the amp then you're going to be concentrating on here. There are 3 transistors, 04, 06, 05 are here, and these are the 2 driver boards. You really have to replace anything out of compliance here. Anything that's more than 10% out of tolerance, replace it. And then remember, they do color code it for you, make it a little easier. The yellow is the base, the green is the emitter, and red connections are the collectors. So that was helpful. I ended up replacing all 3 of these transistors here, as I wasn't sure, and when I replaced the Q105 right here, this one, I found a open base to emitter lead, and when I replaced it in the replacement for Q105 is 309419, and then you go to that flipper site, 309 419, it's a 2N1132. Ordered it, got it in, put it in, and bingo, I had a fix. I honestly was thrilled. The voltage is equalized. So spend your time here. All these components need checked and double checked over here. This side of the amp, other than cleaning the switches over here, the treble and bass switches, and clean the contacts of your mute relay, or be sure that they're not bound up. That's a fairly fragile mute relay, but when that mute relay kicks in, it also gives you power for your trip solenoid. When the record trips off, that's how the mechanism takes the record back. This guy has to say okay to the trip solenoid. So very important that be clean. Also, while I'm on it, the crossover capacitors are down underneath on this box, which is so much nicer. There, I believe there were 25, and I replaced them with two 47s back to back, which gives me effectively 23 and a half. And that's so much easier than in the stereo showcase where I had to chase them down out behind the speakers up there. So that was a plus. But any rate, all the electrolytics need to be replaced. There's, I forget how many of them are. Not too many over here, but you'll see. Do all of them, and then we're going to plug it into a current limiting bulb here, and I'll show you what we're looking for. So you can just probe here the input. I don't know if you can hear that or not. And then go over here, and you know you're in good shape when you've got equal tone and equal volume on the signal going into Q104, okay, on both channels. And it's the other one is Q5112, and that would be on the yellow lead going right here. And I hope you can hear that. And it's equal tone, nice tone, equal volume. We should have a winner here, and that's what you're looking for. I don't do any other oscilloscope work here. The components are good. So what did I have? I replaced all the can caps, and then I got one bad transistor that took me forever to identify. But hey, I got a winner here. This should be good, and we'll put it in, and I would expect good sound. So okay, that's about it. If you're into the amplifier fixes, this is fun, and it certainly can be without a lot of sophisticated equipment. I know we covered a lot of material, but there was a lot wrong with this box, and I hope you get at least one or two take-home tips on getting these boxes back in working order. So my machine is reassembled and it's working. I'm waiting on, I can't play it for you because I still don't have a needle. That's still on its way. The next video will probably be on something like this. Now I put an offer in. This is a stereo showcase remote unit, so I'm going to be perhaps getting the box. And then this is sort of unusual. This sat in the back room, and it was a remote wall box with speakers and then two bass speakers. So basically, they put coins in it and it played a song. And the jukebox was muted. You only heard the back room selection. So I thought that was sort of cool, and I need to learn a little bit about wall boxes. So this is going to be my introduction, and if I am successful getting it working, that'll be my next video. So, all right. Well, it's Super Bowl Sunday and 2 hours till game time, so I'm going to sign off, and let's go Eagles, okay? We'll see ya.